Live from the Talking Joe studios,
It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the G.I. Joe Comics podcast. Now, if you're new to the show, you can find out all about us over at the website. talkingjoe.co.uk is the website. Today, we will be talking about the latest release. It's G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 321. It was released Wednesday, October the 8th, 2025, and it is another silent issue. The synopsis reads: the face of comic books changed forever when G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 21, introduced fans to the silent interlude, an action-packed story with no dialogue. Now, as Larry Hama and Chris Mooneyham present a new silent issue that no G.I. Joe fan can miss, as Snake Eyes and Dawn defend the pit from an unexpected attack. Now, joining me to let me know whether he thinks it is indeed an issue that no G.I. Joe fan should miss is my co-host, Real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark, and hello, listeners and viewers. I don't think any G.I. Joe fan should miss this issue.
Or any G.I. Joe issue.
And that's our shortest episode ever. Goodbye, folks. Nobody be talking Joe. International podcast.
Very good. Now, before
Look
we
at
get
me,
to...
I'm rolling up my sleeves.
Oh, that's a statement of intent. I'm rolling up my sleeves. I've got no ninja tattoo on my sleeve, but I do have one on my arm.
Tell us about the graphic printed on the front of your black hoodie.
I've got a hoodie all done up like Snake Eyes with some grenades across the front, and the hat goes up like that.
Oh,
It makes me look like Snake Eyes. It's dead fancy. So, before we get straight into 321, let's cover a bit of news since last time. So, first up, any other business from last time? We didn't know what one of the variant covers looked like. From 320, the John Gyang cover, which was a New York Comic Con variant. So we found out it's a Firefly cover. So Firefly in John Gyang's trademark style, throwing grenades right towards us, the viewer. Quite an exciting cover, and for fans of John Gyang, I'm sure they'll like this one.
Just to put this in perspective, New York Comic Con is a 4-day show: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it starts the day after G.I. Joe issue 321 is released. I like this cover. If I can't see Firefly's eyes, like a little bit of skin and his actual eyeballs poking through his mask, if he's wearing goggles, though I can see some cues that say Firefly's costume here, like the backpack and the color scheme, I guess. It looks a little less like Firefly and more like Night Force Overkill or Wraith from the Devil's Due run. This starts to look like a robot or a cyborg. I do think it's a really impressive drawing, but I think I want like one more bit that says Firefly for sure, like either his old-fashioned camo or maybe those night vision goggles could be flipped up and we could see a little bit of Caucasian around some whites of his eyes.
Mm-hmm. I don't have a slide for this, but just to mention, we mentioned it on the last episode, but this is the ARAH episode, so I'll mention it again. G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero Compendium trade paperback book 2 was out just recently, October the 1st. So that was the second big chunk of about 50 issues or so of A Real American Hero. The next chunk of A Real American Hero plus the first few issues of special missions. So if you've not got that yet,
plus
go pick it up.
Plus a yearbook, right? Or two?
Yeah, possibly.
Because isn't the variant cover Michael Golden's
True. Yeah.
cover to yearbook 1?
Also, a Real American Hero related, the Silent Missions trade paperback was also just out since we last had an ARAH episode that came out September the 24th, collecting the 5 new one-offs that came out during April, as well as another reprint of issue 21. Speaking of reprints, we've got some reprints of issue number 1 coming out. So we think that this is probably a reprint of the Hama cut of issue 1 that was released a little while back with brand new covers. So, and I'm not too sure that this will get necessarily an official release or not, because these are retailer variant covers. So the first one up is what they're calling a freedom of Defenders of Freedom variant, but through MB artists. This is by Stephen Ahola, and it is very much leaning into that G.I. Joe the movie opening sequence with all of those sort of balloons in the air and the Cobra paratroopers coming down and showing us their butts and that kind of, and the Joes in their jump jetpacks. So yeah, not necessarily, taking cues from G.I. Joe issue 1, but it's definitely a very distinctive G.I. Joe iconography.
Yeah, I like this drawing of Flint, Scarlet, Duke, and Snake Eyes, but Flint and Duke are not in G.I. Joe issue 1 and didn't even show up in the first year of this series. And as I've said before, I don't love it when the comic book and the animated series sort of cross over in a way that doesn't make sense to me. Like, this cover could work for the Saturday Morning Adventures miniseries or more comics in that style, but I find it's confusing the brand. Like if I bought a DVD of the 1990 live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the front cover was not a photo of 4 Jim Henson rubber suits from that movie, if it was instead a black and white drawing by Eastman and Laird from the original comics, that would be confusing. And I get it. This is just a collectible, and this is either for hardcore G.I. Joe fans who either know the difference or just like all G.I. Joe stuff and don't care, or it's for some random impulse buy from this retailer where it's oh, that's a fun thing. It's got a foil cover. It's an exclusive. But it's, I think, Anyway.
Moving on. We have also got another reprint of issue 1, this time with Cedric Pula from 616 Comics. So this is labeled as a second printing. So I guess second printing of the Hama cut of issue 1. So yeah, it's just a random picture of Baroness, waist up, holding a pistol, a smoking pistol up, and with the touch to her glasses. It's nicely done, and I think this is the 3rd Cedric Pula Baroness variant cover that he has done, and he's a good artist. He draws nicely, but it is just a little bit generic. It would be nice to see something more directly tied into the events of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero issue number 1.
Yeah, remember there was that Baroness spotlight issue in the IDW run. What was it? It was issue. It was either in solo missions or special missions. It was 279 or something.
270s, yeah.
I mean, at least the Baroness is in issue 1. I don't think you can technically call this a second printing. I don't think that G.I. Joe is not mailed through the U.S. Postal Service, with subscriptions like it used to be. So the sort of rules about circulation and what's in the indicia, it doesn't matter like it used to. But this is not a second printing. The second printing happened 2 years ago, right? They printed the first printing, they ran out, they printed more. That's the second printing. If you print more after that, it's not the second printing. It's a 3rd printing or a 4th printing. Now, no one really cares. But like technically that label, unless they printed this at the time and they've been sitting on them and then they like wrapped it in a new cover that they commissioned recently, like technically then it could be a second printing. Anyway, there is at least what I like about this is that it's very bold and it really pops. So it is an attractive shot of the Baroness, and the red of her cobra symbol is the same as the red of the background, and the background is just a big burst of red.
And we last time we talked about the Hama files, these reprints of classic ARAH issues, and they're starting with issue 26, I believe, in November. So it's a reprint of the original ARAH book with a letter from Larry Hama, a new bit of text at the back from Hama, in the same way that he had that extra page in the recent reprint of issue number 21. But the new bit of news is that we've also now got visibility of the Chris Mooneyham variant cover for the issue, which features Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow on the front cover, along with a little bit a Diddy Hardmaster there as well. And as always with Mooneyham, a nice, interesting, composed, thoughtful image there from him, which must make collectors think twice if they're just going to get one cover. Do you go for the classic reprint, or do you go for the new Mooneyham cover? Or both.
Interestingly, Skybound is starting to credit the letterer in these Marvel reprints on the cover, right? So over the logo, there's the last name for artist, writer, artist, letterer, and colorist. And I do think that colorists should get credit on the covers, and I've been excited about that ever since. When did it start? I think it started mostly with Marvel's Ultimate line around 2000, 2001, but don't hold me to that. Letterers are important. I have favorite letterers. I actually don't think letterers need to get credit on the covers. And I'm sorry to all the letterers whose work I love, and when I talk about how important lettering is, but it's like movie posters. You have the top of the line actors who get or above the line actors who get their names over the title, and then you get the actors who get their names under the title on the bottom, and then you get the actors who get their names not even on the poster but in the movie. And I think letterers, I think their names can be held until the credits on the inside.
It's the letterer is almost a bit invisible. Like if they're doing their job well, you almost don't notice it, and when you notice it, the best. It's when you notice the letter, it's either they've done something really quite different and sort of striking, but more often than not you'll notice it because it's bad. So it's invisible apart from when it's done really badly, and then it just becomes a massive distraction. But
I do have an exception though. I do think that when Howard Chaykin has given credit to Ken Bruzenak, his letterer, on some of his works, like Times Squared, I think that is well deserved, because Bruzenak's lettering becomes such an element of design that so complements Howard Chaykin's art and storytelling. And while I'm throwing out names, if there's a Walt Simonson collection and someone wants to put John Workman's name on the cover, that's a-okay with me. What else news, Mark?
So we've also got 152 is the next Hama edition, which was an interesting issue, as it sort of spotlighted Joe Colton to tie in with the 30th anniversary of G.I. Joe, 1964 to 1994. And again, we've got a striking Chris Mooneyham cover there in sort of slightly sepia tones, with a sort of a flashback to a mission in the jungle as Colton has a wounded colleague over his shoulder.
That's either drawn on brown paper or cardboard, and
looks like
Mooneyham is doing his full Kubert there.
And taking and like a nice white marker pen, I bet, or white
or
to
paint.
create that.
Yeah. And both Joe Kubert and Adam Kubert have done some covers in the last 10 years on cardboard or on brown paper.
So this image on screen is Pat Oliff art. This is the black and white art for his variant cover for issue 301. And the reason I've put this on there is because he shared a little tease on his Facebook page of a blank bit of drawing paper with G.I. Joe on the top. So it looks like he's going to be drawing some G.I. Joe. Perhaps he might be the artist for 325 when Paul Pelletier rolls off, or perhaps it's some other exciting project. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, nice to see Mr. Pat Oliff returning to G.I. Joe in some capacity.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages.
Hey, it's Mark here, joining you from the distant future of a couple of days after we've recorded. Look how far in the future it is. I've got stubble and everything. So just bringing you some late breaking news of some exciting ARAH news that we found out after recording. So first one up, Skybound has announced G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero Deluxe Edition Book 1, a hardcover collection of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issues 301 through to 310. Recommended retail price of $49.99. That's $50 in layman's terms. Available at comic book shops on Wednesday, April the 22nd, the distant future 2026, and at booksellers and digital platforms May 5th, 2026. So there will be two covers for this, a Cobra cover edition featuring some heads of Cobra Commander, Crimson Guard, Serpentor Khan, and a Cobra Trooper there, and a G.I. Joe version of that with Spirit, Stalker, Scarlet, and Snake Eyes. And this will be illustrated by Andy Kubert, as per the regular covers, but exclusive to this edition. So that's very excited. And it sounds like there will also be a direct market exclusive by Brad Walker and Laura Martin that we've not yet seen as well. So there we go. Exciting breaking news on that deluxe edition, following a very similar sort of format to what we've seen with the Energon Universe books, where you get your releases in 5-issue waves, then they're collected in a trade paperback collection, like Duke and Cobra Commander were, and then hardcover edition, like the Road to G.I. Joe issue collection #1 that we saw for the Energon Universe, collecting those, and Volume 2 just recently out, collecting Scarlet and Destro. Will look nice on the bookshelf altogether. Now we've got G.I. Joe issue #1, facsimile edition, as described by Mike Mayhew, at any rate. So another G.I. Joe 1 reprint, this one being described by Mike Mayhew as a facsimile edition. So is that his language? Is that official language? Not entirely sure. This features two covers, a Snake Eyes cover by Mike Mayhew and an accompanying Storm Shadow one. There will be a pre-sale Sunday, October the 12th, on his website, mikemayhewstudio.com. Cover A, trade dress, limited to 750, and cover B, also 750. 750 seems to be a key number, because in the next story, this cover also seems to be limited to 750. So this story, it was on Facebook, and it's a New York Comic Con variant from Walmart. G.I. Joe 321 variant and Transformers 25 variant, both with J. Lee art. They will be free at the Walmart booth at New York Comic Con. Apparently you can win one in a giveaway or complete challenges in the booth to get them. The print run is only 750 each. They are not for sale. They can only be claimed in giveaways at the booth. So that will be, I think, quite a tricky one to find. Check eBay for those prices, I'm sure, after the event. So now we know what the J. Lee Snake Eyes cover for 321 looks like. So it's a torso up of Snake Eyes holding his trademark Uzi. Not too dissimilar to some poses that we've seen from classic Mike Zeck. So that is all of the late breaking stories as at time of recording this update. Catch you next time, and back to Mark and Tim in the past.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll just mention as well that the issue we're talking about today is a follow-up or sequel to G.I. Joe Origins, issue number 19, published by IDW in 2010. And we did a whole episode recently just talking about that particular issue. So if you want to find out what we thought of that, then you can dial back and watch that episode.
Now, that is a comic book that should get a Hama Files single issue reprinting from Skybound. I would love it if Skybound recolored it, because I don't love the colors in the original. But if the original was printed on newsprint and it was not colored for newsprint, it was colored for glossy paper. But if it was printed on newsprint, I think a little bit of my thinking about the coloring would be mollified. Is that the right word?
Yeah, that my thoughts exactly. I think this with that Hama Files initiative, this is really one crying out for a reprint. Given that we're seeing the sequel to it coming out this very week. So I'll just recap as well and just note that while we talk about silent issues, this isn't the first silent issue that we've ever seen. I've stuck on the screen a little image that Luke on the Talking Joe Facebook page prepared, which highlighted a few of the silent issue comics previously from Hama and others. So yeah, if you want to delve into that, then visit our Facebook page or press pause now.
And sorry, did you just say this? Only half these are Larry Hama.
Yeah, approximately. Yeah, approximately half, maybe a bit more than half. We've got issue 21, 85, yearbook 3 from Hama. European Missions is not Hama. Devil's Due 21 is not Hama. Declassified is Hama. Snake Eyes Declassified Silent Prelude, a short prelude to issue 21. 21B, Silence Between Borders. Splash Bang, Hasbro comic pack-in. There were 2 digital-only comics on the Hasbro website and included with the DVD, which were not Hama. Origins 19. We had Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow 21 from IDW Continuity, not Hama. 214, The Death of Snake Eyes, the funeral issue, Hama. 248, Dawn of the Arashikage, a Dawn-focused flashback issue, Hama. Snake Hunt 275, Hama. The 40th anniversary special, technically Hama, but that is other artists reinterpreting it. And then all of the Silent Missions, new one-shots, 5 issues from April, obviously not Hama, but in the ARAH sort of universe. So yeah, I think we're looking at about 10, 11 Hama silent issues up to this point for G.I. Joe. Cool. So this issue was brought to us by writer Larry Hama, artist Chris Mooneyham, colorist Francesco Segala with Sabrina del Grosso the flatter, letterer in spirit Pat Brousseau. I don't know if he had any involvement in this at all. editor Alex Antone, assistant Antone rhymes with phone. Assistant editor Caitlin Chappell, publication design Jillian Crabb, production design Richard Mercado, and creative consultant Diana Davis. So we can probably move on to looking at some of those pictures and whatnot that they stick on the front of these books. If only they had a way of describing them.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Cover A of G.I. Joe 321 is drawn by Andy Kubert and colored by Laura Martin. We are looking down at Snake Eyes and Don Marino. They look they're in a sort of defensive stance. They're somewhat crouched. Snake Eyes has his Uzi. It's smoking. He's drawing a sword. Dawn is holding a sword. There are a bunch of bullet shell casings at their feet. There's a bright light on them, not quite a spotlight, but sort of like maybe a doorway. To the left and right of them is black. Behind them, they're casting a shadow that's both on the floor and then on some wall. The actual space they're in is a little unclear. It could be sort of the end of a hallway, but it doesn't read as like tech headquarters interior or like sewer or, catwalks. It's just sort of some kind of like stone or concrete wall behind them, which you can tell from where some bullets have hit the wall. What's neat about this cover is that it is a take on the original Ed Hannigan and Klaus Janson cover to G.I. Joe 21, which was published in 1984. That cover, right, which every Joe fan I'm sure has in their mind if they're not wearing a shirt with that image on it, is Snake Eyes with his Uzi holding a rope as he's sort of climbing along the side of or down some kind of building. And there's a bit of a diagonal to that cover. And he's blasting away, but he's also lit up sort of yellow and orange and red. And then behind him, the sky is black. And there is there's something of a light source on that sort of building or tower or castle that he's outside on. And whereas in that cover, we're sort of looking straight on at him, slightly up at him, but there's a sense that he's up somewhere, 10 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet. Now we are looking down at Snake Eyes and Dawn, but the color treatment, the sort of light sourcing, if you were to describe in a sentence that cover and this cover, they're pretty similar, right? It's not a swipe. It's not even an homage. It's an indirect reference. Snake Eyes' costume is torn at his shoulder, on his arm, at his knee, and under the fabric of his costume, there's a bit of a mesh, which looks like kind of an armor. And I don't know anything about this stuff. I've only learned about it from comic books, so I'm going to say Kevlar fiber weave. It didn't occur to me that this version of Snake Eyes' costume has armor under it, but like Batman's costume has armor under it or is a kind of armor. So totally makes sense. The only bits of red here are the red in the stripe of the G.I. Joe logo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bits of red on Dawn's costume, and then a red burst on the bottom, which in itself is kind of a reference to the original issue 21 cover, which said, promised you the most unusual G.I. Joe story ever. And this time it says, a new silent interlude, 300 issues in the making. And I like this because I like text on covers. I like the occasional word balloon on covers. And what this is doing is sort of celebrating that this comic has been going on and off, mostly on, for a long time. And it's a way to put the words silent interlude on the cover without sort of being inaccurate, because this is not a reprint of silent interlude, and it's not silent interlude. It's a new one. But here's a good reminder, right? And I think we actually forgot to say this in all the episodes we've done about Silent Interlude or the remake of it or the original art or, like a fan film made out of it with toys. The interlude of the original Silent Interlude is to say fill in or stopgap, right? Like, it's not like, oh, there's a thing that's happening off to the side. Yes, that's what's happening. But interlude is really, I think it's really Larry Hama saying, okay, I got to make up a story right now to go in between these two issues because we're going to be behind schedule, right? So it's like, okay, well, while I take a pause from a regular story, what's happening over here? It's a little interlude. We're all taking a little interlude, right? So it's like the original title could have been Silent Fill-In or Silent Stopgap or Silent Pause and, hey, what's going on over here? I really like this cover, and I love how bright that red is. Cover B?
I think. I was
Mark,
going to
thoughts?
say. I think another little nod or familiarity to this cover is the Uncanny X-Men issue 141, Days of Future Past, with the yellow spotlight shining on two main characters, a guy and a gal. And if you just also look at Kitty Pryde's placement on that particular cover, with one of her backhand sort of out, palm against the wall on the back of behind her, against what Dawn is doing here, something relatively similar. So yeah, not necessarily a direct homage or a swipe, but maybe a little bit of an echo there.
Cover B,
Cover B
is Andy Kubert's inks for this cover with no color. And as always happens, as good as the colors are on these Andy Kubert covers, when you take them away, you become extra aware of how strong a sense of design in whites and blacks, like light sources and shapes and shadows, and a combination and sort of diagonals and rounded shapes of, bodies, figures, equipment, shadows, little bits. It's a cover that's really dramatic and bold in its black and white version. And it was already pretty bold and dramatic in its color version. Cover C is a painting by Steve Beach. This is the Gears of War cover run that's going to be happening for a couple of issues where there's a G.I. Joe character and a vehicle. I
think they said it might even be 10 issues that they're planning to do that for.
Oh, wow.
And they've revealed the first 5.
Okay. So here is Cobra Commander in his 1982 battle mask uniform, right, with the light blue. He's holding his pistol. Behind him is the Hiss tank. The background is a bright red. And this is a really nice element here. There's a bit of red underlighting on both Cobra Commander and the Hiss tank. So if you look under the cockpit of the Hiss tank, if you look on the bottom left, on the left side of the whole tank tread assembly, and then sort of half of the shadows under Cobra Commander's chin, his right arm, his left leg, it's not black shadows, like it's red lights, it's red shadows. I do like this painting a lot. I as always, it feels arbitrary because Cobra Commander's not in this issue, the Hiss tank's not in this issue, and even though in my personal games with my brother, Cobra Commander often went in the back of that Hiss tank, I kind of feel like the Hiss tank driver should be here, but that's not going to sell a comic book the way that Cobra Commander is. So I love this image. I do wish somehow it could be an issue about, Hiss tanks. And this is the 1 in 10. Okay, and this is the 1 in 10. Now we're on to cover D, which is an open to order. This was not a rare variant. It's just a variant. If your store is charging you more than cover price for this, frown at them. This is Chris Mooneyham, both drawing and coloring. The cover, kind of like the upcoming reprint of issue 26 that Mark previewed a minute ago, is divided into rectangles in a in a way that's starting to feel like Chris Mooneyham's thing. The largest of the rectangles has Snake Eyes crouched, holding a pistol, kind of as if he's coming from around a corner. You see his torso and his arm and his head. There's a rectangle on top, which is all black. That's just for the logo and the issue number. There's a vertical, narrow, narrow rectangle on the right side. And then on the bottom, there's a horizontal. And the one on the right has one of these villains in this issue who's got some cybernetics or has some fancy like night vision-y goggles. On the bottom, this horizontal strip is Dawn mid-air jump kicking the first of 6 of these soldiers rushing her. They're actually colored sort of a light lavender with a little bit of sort of a pale, warm yellow. But I think their costumes are supposed to read a little bit more like gray. And then below them are 2 more of these sort of cyborgy soldiers having been defeated by Dawn, collapsed on the floor with some rubble and a little bit of a smear of blood. And then can you go back to the full version? Mooneyham does 2 more interesting things here. Rather than just a thin black line dividing each of these rectangles, he has a thin orange strip. And coming from the eye, the red sort of goggle, night vision-y goggle eye of that villain cyborg on the right side, is a series of concentric circles that starts very, very small and goes sort of all the way out through the black panel of this villain portrait and then the blue panel of the Snake Eyes portrait. It's in front of the villain, it's behind Snake Eyes, and then it's somewhat echoed in the sort of ribbing on Snake Eyes' costume across his shoulder blades and his arm. It is not literally continuing those concentric circles, but they're slightly agreeing with them. And what this says here, if you haven't read the issue, is like, oh, this guy's got some kind of targeting mechanism. But if you think about sort of, if you've seen movies with submarines, or maybe if you've been on a submarine, or if you've read the issue, or if you've read the issue that comes before this in the story, Origins 19, this is actually sort of a depiction of a sonic phenomenon, right? It's some kind of sound wave, sound effect, pinging or pulsing.
And yeah, it's sort of noticeable on this cover as well is the preferred way that Mooneyham draws Snake Eyes. I think it's a design that he's created with this sort of ribbing on his arm, sort of dividing it into these rectangular sections, which you can see in terms of how he depicts Snake Eyes on the interior as well. But given the way that he's leaning it into the viewer here, it's much more obvious as to what's happening now on his arm. So a spotlight on his design.
What this cover and the upcoming Chris Mooneyham cover that reprints issue 26, and then Mark, it was a Chris Mooneyham convention sketch commission at Heroes Con this past May or June, where Mooneyham drew Snake Eyes sort of inside the rectangle symbol, the negative, the positive space of the Arashikage symbol, right? Am I remembering that right? I'm realizing even more now that Mooneyham thinks about design and dividing his composition of a cover or a pinup and open the book, his pages, into distinct, sort of shapes, panels, segments, both of space and time, but also dividing the page in a thoughtful way. Good designer. Mooneyham's a good designer.
Excellent. So some variant covers. First up, from Alan Qua, who actually gets 2 front covers, retailer variant front covers for this issue. The first one from 616 Comics is the second half of the Cobra and Joe bar. So this is a bar brimming full of G.I. Joe characters, sort of around a sort of giant table, featuring lots of weapons laid out on it. In the front, Roadblock, Snake Eyes, Scarlet. We've even got a Tiger Force European exclusive hit and run there, featured very prominently with Duke at the head of the table. So there is a black and white variant of that, sort of very open, no spotted blacks, and you can combine the two covers to make one giant bar image with the Cobras on the left and the Joes on the right. And Alan Quah also shared his very early prelim of this particular cover, which was interesting to see how he initially blocked it out and stayed pretty faithful to that design as he executed it. Anything you wanted to add? Otherwise, I can push on.
Let's push on.
So next up is the Jamie Sullivan cover. So this is an homage cover to that iconic Wolverine trade paperback cover by Frank Miller, with, I believe, color by Lynn Varley.
I also believe that.
And yes, very much an homage, swapping out Wolverine for Snake Eyes, and making sure that those ninjas from the hand are nice and red, like the red ninjas in issue 21, with a Storm Shadow in white at the back. And this was originally created as a proposed cover for the Snake Eyes Dead Game series, but was vetoed at the time, so was not released as a cover, but was released as a print, which is what I've got just over my shoulder for this particular episode there. So I really like this. I mean, it is very much taking inspiration from that Wolverine homage cover, but I think it works perfectly.
Yeah. And it's fun to see Jamie Sullivan, who can draw in some different styles, go all the way to this extreme, because Miller's sort of bodies are so like squished and taut on this cover in a way that I guess he was doing with Ronin at the time when he did that new cover for the Wolverine story. But in a lot of ways, Miller sort of didn't quite go back to this, or by the time he's drawing Dark Knight Returns, there's so much of a Klaus Janson influence.
It's a bit of a snapshot in time, moment where he was drawing in this particular style as he was progressing from the more traditional superhero style of Daredevil and Wolverine through to then progressing that much more in an extreme way in the likes of Sin City. And in this middle period, he was doing, was it Elektra Lives Again, I think it was called, which was the original graphic novel coloured by Lynn Varley, which I think was probably around this period and is probably the closest fit to this particular art style.
I think this is when Miller is continuing to look at the Japanese artist Goseki Kojima, who drew Lone Wolf and Cub, which is a big influence on Ronin. Who's the next cover by?
It's Alan Quah again. He gets two front covers. This one is an NYCC exclusive, I believe, through Eastside Comics. And so it's Storm Shadow in black and white and greys, with a little bit of red there on his sword. So Storm Shadow in a night scene, or possibly a snow scene, sort of coming towards us in a very dynamic way with his sword. And on his Facebook page, he also sort of shared a little video of his work in progress for this particular image, and just showing how he uses a brush and ink to create the effect that he has done here with his sort of pointed textures on the Storm Shadow clothing and the folds in his outfit, and yeah, sort of a lot of spiky kineticism, I would say, to this particular illustration.
What a cool video. I wish that Cobra symbol weren't stamped in. That looks a little out of place. But this is a fun drawing. Storm Shadow's not in issue 321, so but hey, that's, as an honorary sequel to the first appearance of Storm Shadow, issue 21, I'll allow it.
And as we move on to the next cover, continuing with the theme of people not in issue number 321.
Cesspool and Gristle.
Why are there so many covers of Baroness?
This one is Katya Sinyukahina. It's a Virgin foil NYCC exclusive from Night of Comics, and I believe that the artist will be at NYCC available to sign this. It's Baroness shot from, I guess, the top of her thighs upwards. She's holding two pistols. I think we call those Lugers, the sort of the German officer pistol, and with a sort of a slightly out of focus snake looming behind her. Not really tying into this this particular issue or really giving too much of a sense of story at all. So I'm happy to move on.
I wish the pistol on the right, I wish the barrel were parallel with the rest of the gun. Barrel's sort of crooked, tilted upward. It's a nice digital painting. It's not my preferred style for G.I. Joe. But it's a fine looking Baroness. Who's next?
And there are a couple of covers that have not yet been revealed at time of recording. So we have a Jay Lee and June Chung cover featured on the credits. So this on screen is previous work from Jay Lee, from the front cover to G.I. Joe #1 from one of the many G.I. Joe #1s from IDW.
I think that's volume 6.
This is, a variant front cover for the Citizen #1. So you never know. It might be a reuse of this particular cover, but I suspect
you know why I don't think it's a reused piece of art, because the same week that G.I. Joe 321 came out, Transformers 25 came out from Skybound, and that has a Jay Lee and June Chung cover, and that is a new piece of art. So I kind of feel like Skybound Jay Lee is on Skybound's radar.
Although this is a retailer exclusive rather than a regular release, and there has been reuse in the retailer variants. So that's why I'm putting out there as a possibility. I'm not saying it's definitely going to be the case or not. Okay. And then the other cover we've not yet seen is from George Vega, who I think also had a front cover for issue 320, which we've not yet seen either. And so that will probably also be coming through from Top Shelf Comics at some point. They can be a little bit mysterious in how they release their comics, old Top Shelf. But there we go. We'll put that in an update when we get it. And of course, as with all of these comic bits of news, as I get them, I will post them on the Talking Joe Facebook group. One more. This one is the Bjorn Barends cover from Underdog Comic Shop, featuring Snake Eyes and Timber behind, looking very CGI, like it's almost a sort of a rendered model of Snake Eyes in some form. So I don't know exactly the processes that he used to create this. I imagine a bit of old, a bit of new, an interesting touch. He's got quite a spiky sort of looking wrist gauntlets on him.
Yeah, and sort of
So-
like a ridge along his chin. He's holding both a sword and a pistol, and he has two M16 AR-15s strapped to his back. It's wintry, and the snow is blowing, and timber looks pretty vicious behind him. And I would also use that, sort of looks like a high resolution video game cut scene, action still, Snake Eyes, at the ready.
Mm.
Ready
So
for
that
battle.
is all of the front covers. So perhaps we'll get into the middle of this comic with a plot breakdown.
Plot breakdown.
In the sky above the pit, unknown assailants in a dirigible fire a sound weapon, incapacitating most of the Joes. Snake Eyes and Dawn are wearing ear protection while they are at the pit rifle range, and so are protected. Seeing Roadblock succumb to the sound attack once he removes his ear protection, the ninjas keep their headsets on and investigate. They use jump backpacks to fly to the surface of the pit and beyond to the blimp, where they take out their enemies, ripping holes in the side of the aircraft and holes in the sides of their enemies. Scarlet regains her composure to reactivate the anti-aircraft countermeasures, downing the craft, while Snake Eyes and Dawn bring the two main baddies from the wreckage with a big thumbs up, buddy. Mission accomplished.
Okay. My top
Caveat.
line. Yeah.
I've got we're recording this ahead of release dates, so behind the scenes. So I do have preview images of the first few pages that were shared publicly by Skybound, but I do not have the high res images for the entirety of the book. So I can, on screen, I'll share the first few pages, but not beyond that in terms of what is going to go up on the screen. Tim, high level
So
take.
my top line reaction to this issue is that it's a very good issue of G.I. Joe. Chris Mooneyham has outdone himself in terms of page layout, visual storytelling, action choreography, spotting of blacks, drawing G.I. Joe stuff. It's important to note, since we talk so much about the original Silent Interlude, that Larry Hama both wrote it and also drew the pencil roughs for every page, right? So Hama sort of wrote and drew the issue with, ink finishes by Steve Lealoha. Hama did not provide breakdowns or thumbnails for this issue, right? As with the wordless story in Yearbook 3, Hama wrote a plot and then the artist interpreted it here. So this isn't like the Hama show and Chris Mooneyham also finished the art. This is the Hama and Mooneyham show. And it's actually pretty nice. Editor Alex Antone in the letters page very specifically calls out color artist Francesco Segala for doing a lot of work on this issue to make things clear and keep things moving. So this is very much the Hama and Mooneyham and Segala show. My other sort of big reaction is, I had said this once the last time Mooneyham popped in for some G.I. Joe. It has been several months. Mooneyham's work, when he first was announced, when he first did issues of Real American Hero, you and I and other people were saying, oh, I see a lot of Joe Kubert here. I see a lot of Jordi Bernay here. And then more recently, the last time he popped up, I said, I'm seeing a lot of Adam Kubert. And man, and this is a good thing, because Adam Kubert, I think, can draw anything and does really interesting page layouts. Look at his Wolverine run. He would do 3 issues on and 3 issues off during the Krakoa run, the Wolverine title that started in late 2019 or early 2020. In terms of like faces and bodies and some poses, there's just a lot of Adam Kubert here, and it's very exciting. Mark.
Yeah, I agree. It's an exciting issue. It looks, visually, it's a treat. The disappointing element of this issue is that without the dialogue and that kind of thing to slow down the eye, it felt like a very quick read. So it did take me a lot less long to read through the issue than a normal issue. But of course, with an issue like this, you do have to go back and then reread it at least once more slowly to really sort of to soak it in. And I've only got my digital preview copy at the moment, so I'm looking forward to getting the printed copy in my hand to kind of properly soak it in. I don't feels like reading this one visual on PDF feels like I'm not quite getting the full experience from it.
Yeah, when we have occasionally done an episode ahead of time and I have read a preview PDF, I feel that in addition to how you just described it, but also, you don't get the letters page or the credits page. And I want everything about a comic. I want the ads, even if it's the same ads as all the other comics that come out from that publisher that same week or that same month. Okay. Let's do a half step back and do a little bit of context. This issue has been in the works for, I think, more than a year. Larry Hama first hinted to someone at a G.I. Joe convention in November of 2024 that there was going to be a wordless issue coming up, and it was going to be drawn by someone who'd previously drawn G.I. Joe, right? An artist we all like. That artist dropped out at some point, some months later. It wasn't clear when Hama sort of let this slip in November 2024. It wasn't clear then if this was a fill-in issue that would be slotted at some point, or definitely a multiple of 21 to celebrate the original 21. I spoke to Hama in, I think it was March, April, June, this year, 2025. And he was describing this scene where Snake Eyes and Dawn go up the air shaft. So, so at some point, Chris Mooneyham was just sort of assigned to this issue, or, requested it and got it. And was there a joke in a previous letters page, or did you and I sort of make a crack that for all the months that Mooneyham has not been drawing G.I. Joe, that, there have been several Paul Pelletier issues in a row that Mooneyham took so long to draw this issue? Like it was, 3 or 4 issues worth of work to go into this one issue. Am I making that up? Did someone say that?
Yeah, I think we made that. We've made that joke. I think Paul Pelletier might have hinted at something like that as well, okay, that he'd been working on a while.
And when we had Chris Mooneyham on the show, he talked about how much he likes doing this book, how hard it is, and how hard he works at it. And you can see that here. Mm. And, while we're comparing the two sort of main regular artists on G.I. Joe, let's remember that Paul Pelletier, who's done several issues in a row now, pencils and then someone else inks, and Mooneyham pencils and inks. And for some comics artists, it's just easier to do that. But it's, certainly probably, it's for most artists, it's faster to, collaborate and have someone else finish the artwork. Okay. And then while I was reading this, the thing that I kept doing, besides telling myself to slow down, was making comparisons with the original Silent Interlude, right? Because more than any of these other wordless issues, this is the one that has the most parallels on purpose. Like 248, which is the wordless fight. Is it in Japan with Dawn and Firefly and some ninjas? Maybe they haven't gone to Japan yet, right? Like, that's not supposed to make you think very directly of 21 Silent Interlude. But this is.
Well,
Is it?
that issue had big chunks of flashback to issue 21.
Oh, okay.
So
okay,
it kind of did.
I stand corrected. I mean, Ron Wagner's wordless story in Yearbook 3, like that doesn't, but what happens in 21? An aircraft approaches a Joe or Cobra headquarters, and the opponent infiltrates that headquarters, meets someone for the first time, and rescues someone or gets away with someone, right? What happens in this issue? An opponent in an aerial vehicle approaches a G.I. Joe or Cobra headquarters, infiltrates it, Snake Eyes fights, but now there are some differences, right? Okay, so in the original one, Snake Eyes is on a solo mission, and he goes to a Cobra place. In this one, it's the Joe headquarters. They're all there. Snake Eyes is not solo. But he's doing this alone with Dawn because of a story device, a narrative device, right? And whereas in the original, Snake Eyes is there to rescue Scarlet, but she ends up rescuing him, right? This time, the sort of male-female G.I. Joe kick-ass partnership is Snake Eyes and Dawn. And then where this is different... But
also, Scarlet, in issue 21... Segala is incapacitated for much of the issue, but then escapes and ultimately rescues Snake Eyes. In this issue, she's incapacitated for much of the issue, is able to overcome that, and then ultimately, hits the anti-aircraft button and kind of takes down the baddies as well. So similar.
No, that's great. That's one more. Thank you. So sort of as George Lucas says on the. All the making of footage for episode 1, The Phantom Menace. They rhyme. So that was fun as I'm reading this to have sort of issue 21 like perched over my shoulder, like whispering in my ear. And when I sort of stepped away from it and I thought about this, you and I have had sort of a wish list of things that we hope Larry Hama will do now that he's back on Real American Hero. You've expressed some in letters that have been printed in the letters page. I have expressed some to you, and I keep meaning to send them in. And one of the things that we're looking for is for the return of certain characters or picking up threads from previous issues or stories. And no one was asking for Origins 19 from 2010 and those Russian, Arctic. I mean, they didn't even have names, right? Because it's a wordless issue.
Yeah, we just called them bad man, bad woman.
Right. That's what you and I called them for that episode of our podcast. Well, I should ask Hama if he has names for them, in his plot. But no one was asking for them necessarily to come back. I think when people are asking for, characters to come back, it's like, well, where's Scrap Iron been? Or, did Darklon died, but he came back. Anyway. And this sort of a request I didn't know I had, which was, could you bring those characters from Origins 19 back? I mean, we assumed that they died, so no one, for several reasons, no one was like asking them to come back. But to the extent that Hama can tell another story that looks back to a sort of definitive, I think a lot of people have not read Origins 19, but I would still describe it as somewhat definitive, right? Because in that continuity, it was sort of the first appearance it was the origin of how Snake Eyes got Timber. We think, because that was the point of that title, G.I. Joe Origins. Okay. And then...
interesting... Sorry to interrupt your flow, but interesting sort of how, you're saying we just kind of assume that these characters died. It was a comic from a long time ago. They appeared once, a bit of a one and done issue, and they're at the end of the issue. They're in this crash in their Hind helicopter. Snake Eyes makes an escape, and they're kind of left to these wolves while they're upside down in the Downs chopper. And yeah, we just assume that must be the end of them. But yeah, interestingly, there is a sort of a callback to that directly in this issue, because the girl is missing an arm. She's got like a prosthetic robotic arm, and the bad guy, he has got these big claw marks on his face, which are obviously left over from this wolf attack. So it's interesting that those threads have been directly picked up.
I just did an interview. I just appeared on Ken Poe's YouTube show, Toy Connections. I think that episode won't show up for a couple of weeks, but we're talking about Larry Hama comics and the Marvel run, and we made the point that sometimes Hama brings back characters that you didn't expect him to. And I forgot that the White Clown and Magda show up in issue 145. And we haven't seen them for like 50 issues, right? Because they do show up, right, in the Mark Bright run around 100 and 106. But like we'd really sort of known them in like 62, 63, 64, those issues. And then Mark, who was it? Was it at the end of the IDW run? Who was the pirate? Like someone, Sally?
Yes, Sarawak Sally, the pirate from Special Missions. Yeah, who
Okay,
hadn't appeared for close to 40 years.
Yes, so who shows up in an issue of Special Missions from probably 1987 or 1988. And so Hama does this, and maybe someone put the idea in his mind, like, what about the characters from Origins 19? Or maybe, though he does not go back and read his old work, and I'm not sure that, when the issue comes out or when like the final PDF is assembled, at IDW or now at Skybound, and it's like sent to all the people who worked on the issue, right? Like, don't share this. This is just for you. The print issue is coming in a couple of weeks. I don't think he reads it then. I think maybe he takes a quick look, because he's not like being asked to do a final check, right? He's on to the next thing. Like I've been at conventions where people ask voice actors, like, oh, did you watch the show? Did you watch the cartoon that you worked on? And they say, no, I was there for the recording. But Hama is aware of lots of characters who have shown up in these stories. Okay, so and
I guess this issue probably is more memorable for him. Is this issue being Origins 19 is more memorable for him because he did the breakdowns for that one, so it was a little bit more hands-on, and it was it wasn't just one issue in a long run. It was one specific special that he had done in the middle of this Origins run, which was largely by other writers at that point. So perhaps it was a little bit more memorable, and maybe a little buzzing thing in the back of his brain. Yeah, it'd be good to kind of return to that at some point down the line. And the some point is now. There
are two more comparisons that I want to make to the original Silent Interlude. One is a light use of words, even though there's no dialogue in this issue, and there are no captions, and there are no sound effects. But there is signage, or let's say display fonts, right? So on page 3, right? Dawn and Snake Eyes go through two doors, and the sign above it says small arms range. And on the next page, one of the computer screens in the sort of command module where Duke, Stalker, and Mainframe have spent the last 20 issues, ooh, burn, and also Scarlet, Um, I just want them to get out. I know Stalker's been topside, but he's like, you guys got to go back to Cobra Island, and I got to go back downstairs because that's where I spend 20-ish for Skybound. Where was I?
Oh dear, poor Mainframe. He's not been allowed out. Well, actually, he has been outside. He went on. He went to help get that that cyborg back, and then it woke up on the Tomahawk, and they had a little fight. But
I mean, Mainframe was in Vietnam. He doesn't just have to, be the telephone operator, like this. Anyway, so on the fourth page, there's an on-screen graphic which says aircraft ident, like aircraft identified, experimental airship, Malleus Incus, operator Tympanic LLC. So in the original 21, Larry Hama created this rule for himself where no one would speak, and no one, there'd be no sound effects and there'd be no captions, so that there didn't need to be a letterer, right? This was to save time. And creative people like to create limitations for themselves so that they butt up against something and then they have to make a decision, like the story can only be 5 pages, or I can only use 4 colors, or whatever it is. But that original issue 21 has text when Destro, when his computer equipment tells him what the wind is and how unlikely it is that someone can be inserted, because he thinks that someone might come infiltrate the castle, right? And this issue does have signage, right? Mark, in that panel in 21, when the 2 Cobra soldiers are carrying the claw and Scarlet is like leaning against the wall unseen, is there a giant number behind her? Like she's on sub-level 2 or 3?
Yeah, it's like a 3 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like silent or wordless, there's a bit of an exception in these stories, and that's okay. But this is cute because on here, Mark, can you zoom in to aircraft ident experimental airship? That is a very similar font as Destro's computer readout from issue 21, which is to say this like 1980s like a digital font. And I think this is done on purpose. And now I will announce how little I prepared for this episode. Mark, does tympanic mean anything? Is that a word that means like Russian blimp or like eardrum or, loud scream? Is it some reference here?
So in a medical context, a tympanic refers to anything related to the tympanic membrane, which is also known as the eardrum.
Right.
Or the tympanum, or the tympanum, the middle ear. It can mean resonant, particularly when referring to percussing the body, as in tympanic percussion, which elicits a drum-like sound. And above that, the experimental airship is called the Marcellus Incus. So the Marcellus Incus and stapes are 3 tiny bones or auditory ocelles in the middle ear that transmit sound vibrations from the eardrum to the inner ear, commonly known as the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. They form a chain.
Hammer, not Hama.
Hammer pronounced hammer. They form a chain to receive sound waves, amplify them, and efficiently transfer mechanical energy to the fluid-filled cochlea, enabling hearing.
Okay.
So very, very good, Mr. Hama, with that hammer reference. And there's other sort of sound dotted throughout as well, isn't there? That
you mean lettering?
Oh, sorry. There's other lettering dotted throughout. Sort of turning over the page one more time. Dawn is looking at that headset, the noise suppression, and there's a little sort of label that says DAS, dynamic active suppression. We've got a little bit of a heads up display in the blimp on the next page. The next page over, red alert, which is, big blocky text, and AAA on the, which is, I guess, the AAA is on like a printed on a plastic bit of just above a button. So it's like, imagine sort of like an emergency flat. Oh, here it is on this panel as well. So that will stand for anti-aircraft activation or something like.
I think it's array, anti-aircraft array,
Okay.
or
Yep,
anti-aircraft.
could be.
Yeah.
So, we've got anything else? We've got more red alerts, small arms range.
Armed and tracking, right after Scarlet hits the button to fire the I don't know if they're missiles or rockets, but the anti-aircraft array, right? Armed and tracking. And that's it. Oh, we've got B2. One of the Quonset huts on the final page is labeled B2. Okay. So I'm reading this issue and I'm thinking, man, Chris Mooneyham is so good. This was worth the wait. And I'm trying to sort of put to words what it is that he's doing that's so good here. And I think what he's doing is cramming a lot of story onto each page, right? Paul Pelletier, when we had him on the show recently for a second time, was saying Larry Hama does not go easy on his artists. There's a lot of stuff he wants them to draw. We know about the equipment, right? Very specific weapons and vehicles, right? And costumes, but also choreography. And this isn't a solo book, this isn't like Daredevil jumping from rooftop to rooftop. Every page of this has a bunch of characters, right? Even the first page has a bunch of characters crammed into panel 4. And even on the first page, right? It's like, okay, Mooneyham's drawing canyon backgrounds, and he's drawing this very specific cockpit. And then even in the final panel, he's got to draw the sort of topside decoy of the pit, which it's got that this base has a name, right? Which was sort of new.
Camp Greer.
Thank you. So, and then you get to the next page, and what does Mooneyham have to draw? The vamp. And then page 3 is actually my favorite page of the whole issue. I like backgrounds when I draw in my sketchbook. When I'm out and about, I tend to draw like the stage if I'm waiting for like a speaker or music to start. I like drawing that more than people or hands or like logos. And page 3 is all backgrounds, but a really thoughtful delineation of space. Just look at this first panel. Mark, can you zoom in on this first panel? So we've got foreground, middle ground, and background, right? So the foreground, Francesco Segala has very nicely sort of knocked out in this sort of deep like aqua. So on the right, we've got sort of part of the gantry elevator and then the vamp. And then on the bottom, we've got the sort of black and yellow, like danger paint, even though it's still in this aqua. And then the fencing with a little indication that they're stairs. So we know where Snake Eyes and Dawn are heading. They're walking to the left, sort of toward us. And then the Wolverine. And then on the top left, we've got, I think, this whole control console area where Mainframe, Duke, and Stalker have spent the last 20 issues, also Scarlet. But there's even like under that, there's like a seat, there's a single seat, and it starts to feel like all the stuff that Hasbro toy designers were cramming into the Rolling Thunder, the original headquarters, the mobile command center, like a chair and like 2 steps and like a little joystick and a little console with like 5 buttons. But the scale of this is so great and it's so clear. And then technically the middle ground is, in terms of space, is that Clutch?
Yeah.
Okay. And then
Here he is, Clutch.
do we assume that that is CoverGirl working on the Wolverine? It's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's Dog Welder from from Hitman.
Okay.
Yeah, someone in a welding mask. Yeah, I think that could be anybody. Yeah.
Okay. And then the background is knocked back in this sort of slightly in this desaturated sort of, yellow green. And you've got these like 3 very clear sort of bays at different heights. And in the middle one, 4 Skyhawks. And I think a lot of times, I've said sometimes what I think sort of like the average or the old school G.I. Joe fan wants in G.I. Joe comics. It's like they want a lot of art like Rod Wiggum and Ron Wagner. It's like not too cartoony, not too manga, not too like modern, open, flashy, though there have been plenty of greats who have done those 3 things. And if you grew up with G.I. Joe and you had the toys, you're so aware of gear and accessories and like all the missiles, right? And like, and we have spent some issues of G.I. Joe in the Marvel run, and in the later years in the pit. And here we've got just all this stuff, and it's drawn at scale, but it's monumental. The base is monumental. We've got this sense of space and multiples. And I love seeing multiples in G.I. Joe, right? Because I think if you read the comic, you might assume there's kind of only one Wolverine. Like, well, it's experimental. And if you watch the show, there's lots of all of them because they all get blown up. And I lean more towards the latter. And then I'm not going to like describe in depth.
When was the last time that you saw a Skyhawk in the pages of G.I. Joe? Was it issue 24 or something? Maybe, I don't know.
Oh, that's a good question.
Not for a while.
That's a good question. And also, I appreciate the detail of these 4 locks. We can only see 2 of them that are holding the vamp in place. It happens on the previous page, but so that it doesn't roll.
Oh yeah.
Like that's a safety thing. And I don't know if Mooneyham invented that, saw it in his research, or Hama threw it into his plot. But okay, so in the next 4 panels, I'm not going to describe everything that happens in them. Mark doesn't have to do a zoom in, but like interesting things are in each of these panels. And, once or twice, Hama has, with Elliot R. Brown, has done a big schematic of the pit many, many, many years ago. And then like a year ago or 2 years ago, and you can buy that print from Hama at conventions. And there's just all this fun stuff to sort of look at and explore. And speaking of, have we not seen the Skyhawk since issue 24? Mark, when did we last see the jump?
Was it issue 1? It could have been.
And
actually, in the story itself, it might have been.
Well, I mean, there's that. Is it a Jamie Sullivan variant?
Yeah,
cover
there's a Jamie Sullivan
like,
variant cover.
It's like 263. It's like 3 Joes are flying up at us. Okay, so these jetpacks have some like additional sort of tubing and thrusters on the tops. Is that something that Mooneyham added, or is that from a toy that I'm not familiar with?
Do you mean the top bit there? That's part of the jump jet design, isn't it? Like, it's more the straps.
But here sort of all right, we'll talk
coming
about
out.
Yeah. Because
maybe that's an addition.
When they fly later in the issue, there's thrust coming from 4 places, not 2.
Right.
And then
maybe that's the addition.
And then Mooneyham draws a sort of small version of the platform for each one. I think the actual platform is the right scale, but the sort of 4 feet of it, he like brings in a little bit, and I'll allow it. But I love the playsetness of this page. And, even when, what was the issue with Law? The Spotlight issue with Law? Was that like
I'm not going to remember.
Anyway, the Brian Shearer drawn issue, he goes down into the pit. And there's just, that's one character, and he takes out like 4 cobras. The issue is much more on a smaller scale. And, but like, anyway, I love the pit as a piece of GI Joe mythology, and like, whether it's what's the playset from Mask, the gas station with the mountain, and
Boulder
the
Hill.
Boulder Hill, right? Or like the GoBots Guardian, like spaceship sort of walker thing. I don't know what it's called. But as a kid, I knew people who had these, and I did not have these, and I wanted them. And they're not making them now, which is okay. It's at the classified scale. It would be unreasonable. I love that. I love the setting that this issue takes place in the pit, because the pit is such a cool piece of GI Joe.
So where do you want to go from here? I had a high level take on this that we've not touched on yet. That this is a silent issue. I mentioned we've had an awful lot of silent issues of one sort or another in GI Joe history, and for those issues to some degree, bigger or lesser, they've sometimes had more of an explanation, more of a justification for being silent than others. So issue 21, it's a silent incursion into a castle, very stealthy mission. Issue 275, the finale to Snake Hunt, lots and lots of explosion and gunfire and stuff like that, and shouting, maybe less justified, but I guess possibly, let's come up. Here's a thought that I've just had. Possibly the justification is that it's almost like 20 still shots of moments in time, and you don't get noise on a photo.
If it was a movie, it's almost like issue 275 is the battle montage, and you just play music over it with like general sound effects of guns, explosions, and yelling.
Yeah,
please continue.
But the justification for these issues being silent sometimes is better, sometimes less so. And this one has a good justification that works well, which is that for the almost all of the duration of this issue, that the characters are either being silent, as in similar to this page 4 or so that we've got on the screen at the moment. It's just the Joes silently walking through the pit, but the rest, a good chunk of the issue is that the Joes have got these sound baffling headphones on, which is blocking out all of the sound. So they literally can't hear anything. So it's a kind of a good story logic as to why we're sort of getting a silent issue from their perspective. So I think this one, in terms of the overall ranking, this one ranks a little bit higher in terms of this merits a silent issue.
Yes. Here's one more sort of meta comment. In all the previous silent issues, Snake Eyes can't talk. And in 21, he's not going to, because he's not radioing back to the C-130. He's not calling out, right? Like, Scarlet, where are you? He's just infiltrating, right? He's just incurring, as you said. By the time this issue is published, Snake Eyes can talk. And so interestingly, right, you and I have talked about sort of how much Snake Eyes says now that he has been brought back from the dead without this injury. But this issue, he does not speak, right? And we don't want him to in one of these issues. But in the story, he can.
Yeah, let's do the segment, Tim, just for completeness. Let's have our segment, Snake Eyes Talking, for this issue.
Snake Eyes talking, Snake Eyes talking about things he wants to say.
Tim, what does Snake Eyes have to say in this issue? Nothing.
I should have just put my finger to my mouth.
All 6 fingers.
There's a moment here that I really like. Okay, page 8. After Scarlet hits red alert, after she hits the button for red alert, you turn the page and the panels alternate between regular color and they're all in red. And I think this is the kind of thing that and so this is Segala sort of scripting through color, right? And this might have been a cue in the script. It might have been a suggestion from the editor. It might have been Segala being a very thoughtful colorist and saying, I got an idea. But Snake Eyes finishes firing. Dawn takes a step out of her sort of bay where she's doing target practice, and everything's red. And so she's sort of looking up like, what is this? And then in that third panel on this page, Roadblock is starting to take off his sound baffling ear protection. And that panel is split in half. And in the second half of it, which is now another panel, it's the rest of the drawing, but now it's all in red. And then Snake Eyes has a moment of sort of realization or alert. I wouldn't say panic. And then there's this big panel of Roadblock on the ground with his hands to his head, screaming in agony as this sound is hitting him. And Dawn starts to see that something is happening, but she doesn't know what it is. And she starts to take off her headphones, and Snake Eyes puts his hand on her wrist to not do it. And then in the final panel on this page, which is sort of overlapping with the big panel of Roadblock, she's getting ready now with her machine gun, right? She's turned to her left. It's like, let's go figure out what this is. And Snake Eyes is kneeling and putting the headphones back on Roadblock, who's just been sort of knocked down from this sound assault. And I really like that moment, right? And this is a thing that Larry Hama does in G.I. Joe comics, where the Joes will rescue each other, team up with each other, go on missions with each other, bring someone back if someone's injured. And I sort of, when I started reading this issue, I thought, because I remembered Hama like describing what the issue was, and I remember the final panel of the previous issue where Stalker says, the rest of you go take a shower and take a break. Snake Eyes and Dawn, you have to go downstairs and get ready for Silent Interlude 2, right? Because you have to be walled off from whatever is going to happen, whatever the hook is for the next issue, right? I sort of assumed that we wouldn't see any Joes in this issue except Snake Eyes and Dawn. Even though everyone's in the pit, I sort of assumed they'd all be, I don't know, like evacuated or something. And Hama has a different sort of plot device here, which is that they're all there. They're just sort of knocked down. Let's switch to this, Mark. We spent a lot of time talking about Origins 19 and Bad Man and Bad Woman, right? Which are our placeholder names for these two Russian agents who we don't actually know their names. They've never had action figures. They weren't on the cartoon. And they only ever appeared in one comic book besides this. So, Mark, tell us about your take on their reintroduction here, their depiction, and the fight.
Yeah, I mean, they come out a little bit out of nowhere, don't they? So they're introduced on page 1 as the blimp comes in. They're at the front. He's, I guess, in the front of the ship, and she's behind him, and there's a crowd of other baddies behind them. But we're not given a huge amount of introduction or exposition, really. They're just there, and very shortly after, they're attacking the base. So exactly what they want, what their motivation is not completely clear. Perhaps it's a case of revenge. After all, they were left for dead. He's got a giant scar across his face, and it looks like she's missing an arm, as we sort of discover towards I think it's only at the very back of the book that we realize that she's missing an arm. Literally the last page of the book, she's missing an arm, and it looks like there's sort of sparks flying out from her shoulder. If I'm interpreting that correctly. But yeah, it is cool to see them. They are quite sort of striking, but not completely fleshed out. I like the visuals of the scarred face, particularly. It's quite a cool visual, and tying back to their origin. And I guess their design has been moved on and reinterpreted and updated by Mooneyham here. But possibly the baddies are a little bit blasé. They're sort of a little bit celebratory early with the sort of flippant drinking of a bottle of branded Coca-Cola. Cobra. Oh,
Is it code? Oh, it's COCHLEO, Cochleo.
Cochlea.
So another
Cochlea Cola.
So another ear oral reference.
and yeah, that bottle of cola gets its own. That bottle of cola gets its own story arc as well, as it sort of drops out from the ship, falls down, and
sorry.
And then lands on the floor at the pit over the course of 3 pages.
Okay, but I want to talk about that later because that's
okay.
that. But if there's ever a classified figure of one of these baddies, I'm expecting either a hand, like because they come with different hands, right? Or am I getting the Ultimates line mixed up with classified? I'd like this little. Maybe Brian Sauer can make it for assembly required because he's previously made classified scaled bottles of Yojo Cola and Dreadnought grape soda.
I'll just give myself a fact correction. Actually, Dawn does cut off the cyborg arm of Bad Woman a few pages before the end.
Okay.
So yeah, we do get to see that rather than it just being a very last page reveal.
So okay, in terms of these villains. We don't know their motivation besides we assume revenge, and we don't get any more info about sort of where they came from. Like, I don't mean to say I need to know how they got the blimp, right? It's just enough that either they're bad guys who have attacked the pit, and Cobra's done that a couple times, or they are bad guys who are part of the Russian intelligence and military apparatus, and they want to make this attack, as revenge for this other thing. I don't need any more than that, but I was hoping to sort of sink my teeth into them a little bit more as characters, and considering that there are Bad Man and Bad Woman, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 sort of baddies besides them, and it's not just Snake Eyes and Dawn, but also some other Joes, right? This issue does have more characters overall than the original 21. We don't know anything about Storm Shadow in the original 21, except the reveal on the final page. In the early pages, it's just enough that he flies in on a Cobra vehicle. He is accepted by a Cobra commander, even though he's interrupted this big dramatic Cobra commander presentation or speech, right? And then Storm Shadow does this awesome, crazy thing, which is he slashes at his prisoner, but it's only to cut the wrapping off and reveal I captured a Joe. But we don't know his name in the story. We don't know his relationship to Cobra Commander. We don't know how he got Scarlet. There's all the stuff we don't know. And so to that extent, I don't need to know more about this blimp of these bad guys. But
although they are captured at the end, so potentially it might not be the last we see them if they are actually captives of G.I. Joe at the end. Although G.I. Joe doesn't have a great track record at keeping hold of their captives for too long. So
right, that's true. That's a good point. But I do see, whereas the original Silent Interlude was just Snake Eyes going through these spaces and then a little bit of Scarlet going through these spaces, there are more issue 21 reference chess pieces moving around the board here. This is never going to have a final page as fun, puzzling, teasing as the original, issue 21 final page, which, Hama has said he didn't know what those tattoos meant. all it meant was that these two characters had the same tattoo. So they had something in common, right? He didn't know that they were, he's writing this later, months later, years later. He didn't know that they, had served together, or they had been in ninja training together. They're adopted, they're familial, one of them killed the other one's so-and-so, like that all comes later. And so I knew not to sort of expect some final page that's going to like drive the next 40 years of G.I. Joe mythology the way that final page, and then, Snake Eyes, the origin in issue 26 and 27 drove a lot of G.I. Joe mythology after 1984. I want to go back to a comment I was making about how hard Mooneyham is working. If you, I don't have access to Larry Hama's plot for this issue. Neither does Mark. If you are interested in sort of how writing or drawing for comics works, an exercise might be to take one of these pages and retroactively write the script for it. So describe everything that you see on one of these pages and type it out in script form as if you were going to hand it to an artist who was then going to draw that page. And they wouldn't look at the Mooneyham final page, right? They would hopefully get everything out of your sort of retroactive script that Mooneyham got out of and added to Hama's plot. And, when you read a comic and you read a lot of comics and they're all well drawn, you get sort of finicky. It's like, well, that was well drawn, but why wasn't it even better, right? And I'm looking at these final 3 pages and it's like, okay, bad man climbing up ladder. Bad man has climbed up ladder and now sees something, but we're looking down to see more of his cockpit. Reverse angle, he's seeing Snake Eyes, who is doing a like finger to forehead sort of flick, like see you around. And Snake Eyes kicks Bad Man. Snake Eyes lunges through the hatch with his sword drawn, as rockets fly up towards Blimp, which is on fire and smoking, as sonic weapon continues to emanate from cockpit of Blimp. Final panel, Snake Eyes' sword gouges into control panel of said cockpit with Bad Man seeing it happen, right? And then on the next page, a blimp is crashing. And then on the next page, a blimp crashes into Camp Greer, right? And it's like, oh, and by the way, the blimp crashing into Camp Greer is on the top 1/3 of the page. It's like, oh, can I have a splash page for that? Can I have 2 pages? No, you can have 1/3 of a page. And so, but this final page with the blimp, like not only is it clear, it's really dramatic and exciting and well drawn and satisfying, right? Like Mooneyham does a little bit of a Dutch angle on that top panel. He's tilting the quote camera just a little bit so that the horizon line is not straight left, right. The Joes see it all happen. They have a reaction. They're sort of grim, but then they all sort of smile and like pump fists. And then in the final panel, our heroes emerge from the fiery explosion, bringing the 2 prisoners with them. And there's even room for more interpersonal sort of congratulatory, acting. Because look at Dawn's body language, right? She's walking confidently and it's got a big smile and she's got 1 thumbs up. And then Snake Eyes is walking, Mooneyham drew the heck out of this. And this isn't even getting back to some of these pages with some really lively panel layout and sort of leading your eye in a zigzag or like up and then down.
Mm-hmm. And the key thing about these pages really is that they're really designed. Each page on its own looks great, sort of taken in isolation, but that's not really at the expense of the overall storytelling. That it still reads really well as an overall story, with each page as an artifact in its own looking great, and each being like really diverse in terms of the layout that is used and the type of composition in terms of the pages. And there's a lot of very dynamic posing and action shots and perspective, use of backgrounds, use of no backgrounds to make images pop. It does really look great. And I love particularly that page with where the sound weapon is initially activated with the red alert on it, and it's almost like the concentric circles of that sound device activating, sort of emanating from the center of the page, sort of just really being sympathetic with the rest of the layout of how the Joes are kind of reacting. And it feels like a circular image in terms of the way that the panels have been laid out surrounding that that pulse initially activating, and Francesco Segala doing some really interesting stuff with the colors on that page in particular, sort of just shifting things out and just being a little bit almost like printed as a bit of an offset, something close to what Jordi Belair's been doing in pages of the other book.
Yeah, on this page where the Joes are getting hit with this attack, Segala takes some of his colors and prints them out of alignment. So it's sort of like a glitch, like a blur.
Glitchy, jarring.
Yeah, what you're describing with this concentric set of circles on the red alert page is that if you look at the first panel, Stalker's in the front, the other Joes are reacting in agony behind him. And based on where they are, underground, the concentric circles of the sound attack would be physically coming from above. You'd have those curly lines look like the bottom of a circle, right? Like if you're looking at a clock, it would be the arc from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock coming from the top of the page. But Mooneyham, as you just described, has this attack coming graphically from the center of the page. And so it creates this circular pattern of reading the page, and the concentric circles hit all of these panels sort of the same way, even though it's sequential. It's good. And then when you turn the page, it's happening again, but now it's just focused on sort of Roadblock's agony, right? It's no longer sort of coming from nowhere everywhere. Now it's sort of, we're almost in Roadblock's head when you turn the page, because he gets that big panel to himself.
And it's from almost like the point of view of Dawn and Snake Eyes. They're like, huh? We're not experiencing anything, but then there's this giant hulk of a guy whose brain is on fire.
Yeah. Okay, so the page after this, where Badman has his fists raised and is smiling, and we see a close-up of him with the slash marks on his face. And then Bad Woman gives sort of a thumbs up to the 5 or 6 baddies, like, okay, go down and attack. There's that small inset panel where 2 of them are on the sort of gantry, the very small personnel gantry, not a vehicle gantry, and one is climbing down the ladder. Is the one all the way on the left holding the bottle of cola? Is this where the bottle of cola originates? And I can't see it.
Oh yeah.
So
it's
okay,
it's small,
so tiny.
It's small and it's coloured in that kind of greeny blue. He's got a bottle of cola in his hand and sort of holding it almost to his mouth. So that's the first time we saw. Oh no, actually, in the panel above that little one in the background, he's also got a bottle to his lips. He's drinking from it there.
Okay,
so that's the origin story of the bottle of cola.
So since the bottle of cola becomes such an important, it's not even a prop, it's a marker. It's a marker of time. Like 3 and 4 pages later, I do wish that on this page where it shows up for the first 2 times, pretty small and tiny, I do wish it was colored a little differently to draw some attention to it. Not bright yellow. It's not a bomb. It's not a glowing thing. It's not magic. But just like the same way that sort of some of these soldiers have like lighter shoulder, pads versus the like, duller like cloth of their tunics. I wish it was just sticking out a little bit more. But when turn a few pages ahead, I guess now we're on page 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12, and 13. So Dawn and Snake Eyes are rocketing through the pit laterally. They're going back through the weapons armory that we saw in a previous page. And I'm wondering, did Mooneyham take that art and flip it digitally? Maybe. And then there's this panel of the bottle falling through space with no background. And for a moment, I start to think of famous times that props, you know, it's like, okay, well, there's the Coca-Cola bottle in The Gods Must Be Crazy. There's the bone at the beginning of 2001, A Space Odyssey. It's like, I don't think Hama's actually do you have one?
Is it a snow globe in or perfume bottle in Watchmen? Is it a bottle of beet?
Floating through space. I don't think Hama is necessarily referring to like Kubrick, but you know, you can't help but maybe think of these other things if it reminds you of it. But what he's doing here is he's showing you how fast the jetpacks are by showing you how many pages it takes. He's slowing down time, how many pages it takes for this cola bottle to drop all the way from this airship all the way down to the ground. And I did think on page 13, should it be crashing? Like if I turn the page, is it going to shatter? And then I turned the page and it didn't. And I thought, oh, I'm disappointed. And I thought, no, the story's not about a bottle of cola. That's just that's just a device. Hama could have done a ticking clock on the wall and just shown, you know, like seconds hand moving from 1 second to the next, just to show you how much time is going, not very much, as Snake Eyes and Dawn rocket up on their packs.
You turn the page from that last shot of the cola bottle, and it's the it's the baddies looking down at the pits. And if you zoom in enough, you can see the cola bottle shattering. I'm joking. I'm reminded of that Hama story.
Excited.
You know, they're in the Bugle looking down out of the skyscraper at the street below, and they can see in the bin there's a headline on the newspaper. All one shot. You know.
Oh, right. Larry Hama tells a story about someone who hadn't written comics before, and they described like 2 pages worth of information to all go in one panel. And he said to the editor, once Snake Eyes and Dawn get up and they sort of arc over in a really cool sort of angular curve over this airship, and then it's really satisfying when they start slashing their swords through it. And then there's this, you know, then the attack really begins. And there's a whole page of 4 panels of them alternating, Snake Eyes, then Dawn, then Snake Eyes, then Dawn, slashing these baddies. Not Badman and Badwoman, but the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's the G.I. Joe ARAH form. one of the hard and fast rules is that the G.I. Joes can just kill the troopers, the unnamed troopers, with impunity and in as gory way as possible. But lead characters have to be respected. You know, respect the hierarchy and try and capture those guys alive.
Right, so that they can escape the next issue. Cobra Commander escapes. I was struck by the use of red on this page, because where Dawn and Snake Eyes are slashing through these 5 baddies. I mean, it's a really striking page because the background is a very similar sort of muddy aqua, and the streaks of them flying are yellow. And then sort of all the characters, you know, it's like sort of this very similar like gray, pale purple, whether it's a bad guy or Dawn or Snake Eyes. And then you get these red slashes and bursts. And it reads to me as blood. And there is some of it on Dawn's sword in the second panel. But, you know, like in sort of normal comic book language, this would just be yellow, because it's the like it's the hit, if
Yeah,
someone
the
like
kinetic,
yeah
explosion. Yeah.
yeah, if someone like flicks a little, like if someone flicks a quarter across a table, if someone like sneezes, if someone punches someone, and you have a little sort of like drawn kind of star, either because you're thinking it's a star or because it's like you see
Yeah.
stars
Like on the next page, on the subsequent page, Scarlet hits the
Yes.
button, and there's a yellow,
Yes.
flash of
Thank you.
energy.
But going back to that previous page, it's blood, and I thought this is really bloody ninja
Yes.
attack for an issue of GI Joe, and I thought, well, okay, they're cyborgs, I think, not humans, so
Maybe.
it's okay. And also, it's Skybound, not IDW, and not Marvel.
Mhm.
Mark, do you have any sort of
Oh, I
parting-
did have
yeah,
I did have a
more
a quick
specifics
I
before-
Spy.
I spy with my little eye.
So we in Origins 19 Parallels, Snake Eyes did destroy their ship last time with his sword. It stuck it in the fuel tank and caused all that sort of havoc. And we've got them slashing the sides of this dirigible here. But more specifically than that, when they noticed last time that there was a sword sticking out the side of their vehicle, and were like, emergency alert, Snake Eyes does a little, flip of the hat, to this little wave, and lo and behold, what do we see in this issue? Just as the guy sort of is coming out of the cockpit to see what's going on, it's Snake Eyes giving another little "Hey there," and then booting him in the face. So another nice little echo back to to Origins 19. It's another "Hello, me again" moment.
Yeah. There's a bit at the end of the letters page where editor Alex Antone says he'll be taking a leave, and that Ben Abernathy, who's the editor of Energon Universe GI Joe, will be taking over in the interim. And that's, congratulations, editor Alex, on the birth of your second kid. Also a bummer, because I like you as editor of this book, and I'm always a little worried when presumably an overworked editor takes on a whole nother book. And as we've said, this is a complicated book.
But thankfully, he's got Diana in his corner, picking up.
This
snafus.
Yeah. Okay, so Mark, I've zoomed in on some pages,
and also in the letters pages, they say they're starting the build up to issue 3 to 5, where they've got something very special planned, and not another silent issue. So
I don't think Skybound does double-sized issues for 25s and 75s. I think they only do them for 50s and 100s. So I'm already lowering my expectations that issue 325 will be longer than normal. I think it'll just be a $3.99 20-page comic. Oh, there is one difference, right? The original Silent Interlude was 22 pages, and we're in this era where mainstream comics are 20 pages. And so this story was, it's not fair to say it was 2 pages short than it could have been, because, they're not making 22 page. Okay, Mark, I've zoomed in on several specific panels and pages. Were there any panels, pages, or sort of beats that, before we wrap up, you wanted to call out?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a bunch of stuff. I like one of my I've got all sorts of favorite bits in here. I like the look. I like the look of that when we first see Bad Guy with his grin and the scarred face. I like that we get to see Rock and Roll on the last page, not looking too dissimilar to his Energon universe look, but here, at least in this universe, he's still alive and kicking and rocking and rolling, just for a couple of panels. A really enjoyable issue. I think it's always difficult for one single issue to live up to the hype, but I think Mooneyham on top form once again. And anytime he wants to return back to G.I. Joe, I will be very happy to see him back on the book.
Yeah,
I think-
if you are a G.I. Joe fan who considers lending or giving G.I. Joe comics to potential fans or lapsed fans, if you're ever concerned that the Energon universe is already too complicated or too weird, if when you're thinking about this sort of potential friend of yours, or that even, issue 320 or 319, like, well, the story's been going on and there's all this stuff and Mindbender's got this new costume and, there's still Alpha 001. Issue 321 of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero is a good comic to lend to someone who likes exciting comics or a potential or lapsed G.I. Joe fan. Or maybe, folks, buy an extra copy and give it as a gift.
Very good. Let's look ahead to next time. So the mission continues November 12th, 2025, with an all-new story from returning artist Paul Pelletier. So that looks cool, and we'll be seeing an Arctic mission November 2012, a bit over a month's time, and we'll cover it here on Talking Joe. And in the other universe, G.I. Joe number 12 is coming to us very soon. That will be in shops October the 15th, 2025. So very much looking forward to this sort of semi-standalone issue that will feature Night Force and the introduction of Shooter into the Energon universe. And looking beyond that, I'm looking forward to Tom Riley returning with fortnightly G.I. Joe with Dreadnought War starting in G.I. Joe number 13 in November.
As a reader, I'm looking forward to 3 G.I. Joe comics every month. As a podcaster, right? G.I. Joe, and Real American Hero. As a podcaster, that's more work. So get ready, folks.
Very good. So if you are new to Talking Joe, you can find us in the usual places. talkingjoe.co.uk is the website that links you to those places. Facebook group, Instagram, Twitter, all of those kind of things. We're on YouTube with visual episodes and audio only episodes in all of the places you can find your regular old podcasts. The audio only is edited to get rid of lots of extra ums and ers, so is enhanced for your oral pleasure. So we are also on Patreon, patreon.com/talkingjoe. Big thanks to backers Richard, Sam, Bill, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, Frank, Mike, D, Shane V2. This one has got a scar down his face now. And Infinite Entertainment, Patrick, Gary V, and Coldroff, they're getting early access and ad-free access to episodes as well as exclusive content just for them. Tim, where can you be found when you're not talking to me about G.I. Joe?
youtube.com/@atomicabe. That's video essays on television and film. I own a brick and mortar comic book store in Somerville, Massachusetts. That's Hub Comics. And I write about G.I. Joe at my blog, arealamericanbook.com.
Cool. And you may or may not be found this weekend. When is this coming out? Yes, this week, isn't it? I don't know. I'm not sure.
When, aren't you putting this episode?
When am I putting this episode out? I normally put.
Are you doing? When did you do Cold Slither? Isn't Cold Slither on the 9th? And
then
this
yes,
will be on
Cold
the
release. Cold Slither is this week. So
right, so
anyway.
And I may or may not have been found at New York Comic Con.
Indeed. We'll. Next time we talk, we can talk about your experiences of New York Comic Con or not, depending on whether you were there or not. And with all that, said and done. Anything else to remind us, Tim?
There is something I'd like to remind everyone. It's that Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Laters.